And the judges can now introduce themselves.
Good afternoon and welcome to the We the People National Competition. We're pleased that you're participating in the national competition. Mr. Torres, could I ask you to take off your camera view so we just see the students, please? Thank you. We're going to introduce ourselves and then ask you to introduce yourselves and your teacher, and then we'll go from there. My name is Dan Taubman. I'm a senior judge on the Colorado Court of Appeals in Denver, and I'm always glad to judge students who know that there actually is a mountain time zone.
My name is Ali Khan. I am a lawyer in Chicago, as well as an alum of the program. I participated at nationals for Illinois back in 1998.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Ben Glickman. I'm an attorney with the California Attorney General's Office. Also an alumnus of the program. I participated at the national finals in 1995 on behalf of California. So congratulations on making it here.
And would you introduce yourselves and your teacher, please?
Hi, I'm Soren Olson.
I'm Claire Adams-Crow.
And I'm Carter Swanson, and we are all students at Cottonwood Classical in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and our teacher is Bill Torres.
And just clarification, Gabriella, are you the timer?
Are we supposed to time it, or is this facilitator supposed to time it?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Yeah, we just couldn't hear you when you introduced yourself.
Oh, I'm sorry. My name's Gabriela Verardo.
Oh, okay, thanks. You're still a little bit low in volume, so if you could get closer to your camera, that would make it easier for us to hear you.
Okay.
And would you like to introduce your teacher, please?
Our teacher is Bill Torres.
Okay, thank you very much. As you might have guessed, we're going to ask you today about question 2, which I will now read. There is nothing I dread so much as a division of the Republic into 2 great parties, each arranged under its leader and in opposition to each other. What issues led to the formation of the original political parties? To what extent have those issues persisted in American political parties? What are the advantages and disadvantages of a unified or divided government? You may begin.
George Washington said in his farewell address, quote, "The alternate domination of one faction over another, sharpened by the spirit of revenge, natural to party dissension, which in different ages and countries has perpetrated the most horrid enormities, is itself a frightful despotism. And sooner or later, the chief of some prevailing faction turns this disposition to the purposes of his own elevation on the ruins of public liberty," end quote.
The farewell address was the most famous statement against political partisanship, but even before the ratification of the Constitution, the division of our nation proved to be one of the most trying issues rooted within the beginnings of America. The division was an argument between entrusting a large centralized government and a small localized government. The distaste between Federalists and Anti-Federalists stemmed from their attempts to decide what was best for the people and their fundamental rights.
Madison said in Federalist 10 that the only way to control a faction would be to, quote, control its effects, end quote, meaning the allowance of factions if we have some sort of safety net in place. He also said that, quote, liberty is to a faction what air is to life, end quote, implying that factions thrive in societies where people are free.
The discourse that occurred during the creation and adoption of the Constitution affected how much freedom we chose to give each of our citizens, how they would use this freedom, and how it would correlate to the creation and domination of factions within our society. Despite years to answer these political questions, today political parties are more apparent and polaric than ever.
Even now, there is still a major division of the nation into 2 main groups under the political parties of Democrats and Republicans. With this division comes the suppression of third-party voices as the 2 main factions compete for power. This also comes with voting along party lines rather than voting for people whose policies and values align with our own as individuals. For example, the Settle for Biden campaign. However, one advantage of a divided government is the ability that citizens have to criticize the government and its faults within the implemented systems we have in America.
Along with this, we have leaders who feel more obligated to serve their constituents in order to maintain their relevance and the support gained from their party. But this large-scale division we experience makes it nearly impossible for Congress to complete simple tasks that call for bipartisanship and agreement between the two factions that exist simply to aggravate each other. This system, while becoming more of an issue in recent years, has been prominent in America since our first highly partisan election, the election of 1800, where Thomas Jefferson and his running mate Aaron Burr tied in electoral votes. And it took a laborious tiebreaker to elect one as president because Federalists did not want to vote for either.
Even if there is a clear path towards passing a bill either due to party majority or bipartisan agreement, the filibuster can make the process even more laborious. According to Vox reporter Tim Ryan Williams, there were 263 Senate cloture votes in the 2019-2020 session of Congress. Evidently, it takes a rare case of sufficient unification to surpass 60 votes in the Senate in order to achieve the wishes of the people of the United States.
For example, an issue with far less partisan conflict than others of the same caliber, stimulus checks, have been tossed around from Congress to the Oval Office and back over the course of this year and the last. In a video release, former President Trump stated, quote, "Send me a suitable bill, or else the next administration will have to deliver a COVID relief package, and maybe that administration will be me," end quote. His final statement about the election displays the underlying partisanship of nearly all decisions made by the modern federal government.
Of course, there are currently motions to unify the federal government circulating. H.R. 1, the For the People Act, includes a plan for establishing a code of conduct for Supreme Court justices in order to make the branch less political and more in line with the intentions of the founding fathers. Ironically, this bill is expected to be blocked by a Republican filibuster in the Senate.
On the other hand, the unification of our nation would allow for rapid enactment of policies which could appease Americans for the time being, but would ultimately be a slippery slope towards totalitarianism. For example, in his 1936 presidential election bid, Huey Long attempted to change the government to be more authoritarian on the stance that he would enact sweeping changes such as a wealth tax that would benefit the majority of Americans.
In order to avoid authoritarianism, education of our citizens of our nation to a higher level than that of today would be vital to the prevention of factions arising and becoming a potential threat to our government.
There are many worst-case scenarios that may happen when people are not properly informed and educated in civics. An obvious case of this is the Nazi Party in World War II era Germany.
Okay, thank you for your opening statement. We'll start with some questions. You said that it's difficult for third parties to flourish in our present political climate. Do you think that it would be beneficial to have third parties that were more active than is presently the case? And if so, why?
I think that personally, no, because because of America, we are known as the melting pot. We always have been. We are an incredibly diverse country. And that being said, because we are so diverse, having multiple different parties, even having a third party could really just overcomplicate matters and have nothing ever get done. Because we are so different, because there is so much diversity in our country, having these two pretty general overarching beliefs in our government, I think actually helps us get more done. So I think that no, having a third party would not be beneficial.
I understand that argument. I also think that, sorry, Carter, that it would be beneficial to have a more involved and more apparent third party, just to give more people more options, because the two different options are so different, and something maybe more in the middle or something people could agree on more would perhaps influence more unification and just more togetherness, and like that of people being one as a country instead of divided into these two different groups.
And to build on what my colleague Claire was saying, I do agree that having these two major political parties helps our country to get more done. However, I would slightly disagree, and I think that having a third party or other parties that people could vote for might allow people to find parties that more specifically align with their specific beliefs. Because right now we have our two parties that are very general, and so for the most part, people who vote Republican generally agree with Republican policies. However, they may disagree on some finer points, and so a third party may help to be to identify more with the individual person, but they're impractical in our society because it would be very difficult to get anything done.
Since it's often a hot button issue when it comes to our political system and presidential elections, would you support the abolishing of the Electoral College? Why or why not?
So the Electoral College at a time was instituted in order to I guess, appease anti-federalists and consider the rights of the states. However, today, the federalism versus anti-federalism debate is not nearly as relevant as it once was, and state populations have grown at different rates. So, frankly, the fact, even though at a time it was relevant, now it's simply allowing for people in country or in states with less population to have votes that count for more than states with more population. So I would say yes, abolishing the Electoral College would be a good thing for our country.
To agree with my colleague, I would also say that the way presidents campaign right now is they campaign most in states that are near to a tie so that they can win the whole state. Whereas a state like California that is heavily Democrat, a Republican would never spend much money campaigning there because there was no point. However, if the Electoral College was abolished, then a president could campaign in places like California, a Republican presidential candidate could campaign there, because it wouldn't matter whether they won the whole state, it would just matter the individual votes. So I think it would be helpful to abolish the Electoral College.
And also in instances like in the 2016 election when President Trump won the Electoral College vote, but Hillary Clinton won the majority vote, it's just a little bit, it's odd to look at like the people who win the majority vote of the United States are not being president just simply because of the Electoral College, giving less value to votes in certain areas and like it affecting the way that people vote and the way people campaign and target who they want to vote for them.
Thanks. I wanted to circle back to the third party question. Are there structural changes we could make to our government or to our election processes that might allow third parties to thrive more?
I think an obvious choice would be ranked choice voting, which is becoming more relevant all the time, because as people realize that the Electoral College and other, I guess the way that we vote for officials right now is flawed. The reason ranked choice voting would be good is because it allows people to consider choices not necessarily strategically when they vote, but more based on their personal views. So I think ranked choice voting would be definitely a step in the right direction to allowing third-party candidates and overall just candidates that relate more with the people to succeed.
To what extent have the Democratic Party and the Republican Party included people with different views within their parties?
I think both the Democrat and Republican parties are always trying to include people of different races and people of slightly different beliefs who can advocate and encourage a different set of voters to, join the Democrat or Republican parties. And I think many different instances of this is like, or one instance of this is like the Vietnam War, which was a very contradictory issue. And so the Democrat Party was very split at this time whether to nominate a pro-war or an anti-war candidate, because they were trying to decide what group of people to appeal to. And so I do think both parties have tried to appeal to and have elected different nominees.
Also, kind of going back to what we said in our statement, kind of about the settle for Biden idea. If you notice within the Democratic Party, there's a lot of differing ideas, not necessarily so different that they're completely different parties, yet Bernie Sanders and Biden are very different people and they have different views, although they are within the same party. So I think that there are a lot of differing views, and like having those similarities in people who can be like, who will vote for a Democratic candidate because they are more in the middle, not so much left and not so much right, is important. And I think that was one of the main ways they had President Biden win the election, was because he wasn't so polarized in left or polarized in the right.
Do you think that we could potentially lessen the partisanship and perhaps gridlock in our country if we mandated that the president and vice president must be from different parties?
I think that if we had the vice president and president be in different parties, it would certainly promote more like a less polarized, more unified government. I think it certainly would promote more of that, just because, and I find that people often agree more on things if they think that they at least have one person representing them.
I
Thank you.
see that your time is up. Thank you very much for your presentation. Let's show our appreciation for the team. Thank you very much for your presentation. I enjoyed your comments. I'd like you to starting off with George Washington's farewell address, which is an important statement about the concerns about political parties. I also like your mention about what happened during the election of 1800. That shows that you've done research into the part of the historical background. And I liked in answering the questions that you showed different views about whether third parties would be beneficial or not. I mean, when you disagree, that shows that you're thoughtful, and that for a lot of the questions that we're considering, there isn't a simple right or wrong answer. So I think that was good. And then when we were talking, when I asked you about the differences within the political parties, I thought it was good that you mentioned the difference between the Bernie Sanders supporters and the Joe Biden supporters, because that's a very good example of how within a party there are different views. You might have also mentioned the Tea Party members of the Republican Party, who were another faction who had different views, or the Blue Dog Democrats that were a more conservative part of the Democratic Party. But over the years, there have been different groups within the parties that have had different views. So it's good that you recognize that. And my guess is that we'll continue to see that. So I think you did a nice job covering all of the different aspects of the question, and congratulations on your presentation this afternoon.
First, again, congratulations for being here. I know it requires a lot of work, time, and effort, and I know it's not always easy to be on the other side of the table, or Zoom in this case. So, you should feel good about yourself and be pleased with yourselves. I think Dan said a lot that I was thinking. Let me add that I like some of your references. I like the Huey Long reference. I hadn't heard that one today. That was a good one. I liked how y'all participated, how you felt free to disagree. Y'all were enthusiastically, wanting to answer questions. I think shows, an eagerness and to jump into these debates. With regard to the question of electoral college, I wish you kind of fleshed out a little more, because there are folks who truly do believe that the people in the small states will suffer if they do not have the electoral college to protect their political rights, political power. Whether you agree or disagree is a different question, but I think it's still hotly contested. So flesh that out a little more would have, I think I would have liked to have heard. But overall, I really enjoyed listening to you. I enjoyed the conversation, and again, congratulations for being here. Really nice job.
Yeah, I would echo all of that. I thought the prepared remarks did a nice job of answering the question. I like the reference to the filibuster there as another reason that partisanship has become so entrenched. I think that's important and certainly timely given the current conversations in DC. On the various questions, I agree. I thought you did a nice job. I thought on the Electoral College, I like the notion that moving to a popular vote would, get candidates into different states that they might not otherwise visit. And then, kind of tying that back into the 2016 election of kind of just the fundamental weirdness that the person who won the most votes didn't win the election. Like that's pretty unusual, in the world. And so I thought those were good points. On my question about what we could do to give third parties a better chance, I think ranked choice voting is a great example. I might have liked to hear both more examples. There's other things like multi-member congressional districts or moving away from party primaries, things like that. And then also within ranked choice voting, there are downsides to ranked choice voting, and it would have been great to have one or another of you have come in and said, well, ranked choice voting might increase third parties, but at what cost, and kind of talk about the cons of ranked choice voting. But those are nitpicks. I thought overall you guys did a very nice job and should be very proud of yourself.
Thank you again for your presentation. We enjoyed listening to you, and good luck in the competition.